There's been a lot of rumors going around about the Nintendo Switch 2, so I'm here to put them to the test. Are these rumors true or completely made up? I had to see for myself, and as you probably know, I managed to get my hands on the Nintendo Switch 2 in person. So with me playing it and some research, we're going to find out if these rumors are true or false. Let's get started. Is the Switch 2 camera mountable on the console? So there are two major cameras on the market for Switch 2. There's the official one with the stand and all that good stuff, and then there's the epic Piranha Plant camera, which is 480p. Yikes. The rumor about mounting these cameras came from the Piranha Plant one. That camera has a stand you can put on your TV stand, or you can take off the stand and plug it directly into the Switch. So it looks like there's like a little Piranha Plant growing out of your Switch. How neat. So obviously, people assume that the regular Switch 2 camera could do the same, but unfortunately, it can't. You have to plug it in and unplug it anytime you undock and dock the system. Kind of weird. So while some Switch 2 cameras can be mounted, the official 1080p camera from Nintendo themselves can't. So this is false. The Switch 2 has electromagnets. Okay, I got a lot of comments about my last video when I talked about the magnets. This was a rumor I first heard when someone told me that if your Switch 2 runs out of battery, the Joy-Cons would fall off, because apparently the magnets wouldn't have electricity anymore. At first, I thought that was ridiculous, because standard magnets don't need electricity. But it turns out some magnets do. Electromagnets. They're powered by electricity. I had no idea. And the reason that people thought the Switch 2 might use electromagnets is because over a year ago, before the Switch 2 was even announced, there was a leak, or a rumor. And that leak claimed the Joy-Cons would use electromagnets to attach to the console. So from that, a lot of people thought that the release button actually cuts off the flow of electricity to the magnets. But in reality, they're just standard magnets, because the release button is actually just a lever that pushes the controller away from the magnet that's built on the console. So there, I finally answered the question. No, the Switch 2 doesn't have electromagnets. So false. Are the Joy-Con sticks stiff? So once again, this is from another rumor we heard before the Switch 2 was even announced. And it actually came from an official patent from Nintendo. First of all, after playing with these sticks like there's no tomorrow, I can confirm these are the smoothest, best feeling analog sticks I've laid my tender fingers on. But the rumor came from a Nintendo patent where the developers could supposedly adjust the firmness of the analog stick depending on what you're doing in game. Essentially, there was like this liquid inside the analog stick, and let's just say you were in sand or something, it would actually be hard to move the stick. It's a very unique idea. It's very similar to the PlayStation 5's analog triggers, but Nintendo didn't use this on the Switch 2, so that's sad. Anyways, this is false. The Switch 2 will fit in Switch 1 cases. With the increased size of the new Switch 2, it's safe to say that most Switch 1 cases won't hold the new system. But there are some larger cases that have enough space in them to fit this, apparently. This is like half true, it just depends on the case. It's mostly false. Joy-Con 1 can be used on Switch 2. We already know that the Switch 1 Pro controller can be used on the Nintendo Switch 2 if you've been keeping up, so that actually negates the need for most people who had a Switch 1 Pro controller to buy a Switch 2 Pro controller. Even though they're epic and I'm still gonna buy one, I don't technically need one because I have some Switch 1 Pro controllers. But while we can use a Switch 1 Pro controller, can we use the Switch 1 Joy-Con? Because nobody really talks about connecting a Joy-Con to the console. Yes, for those of you who are still out there playing Ring Fit Adventure, you can rejoice. Now you might be asking, how in the world do I connect them if they're not magnetic? Well, it's pretty easy. You just hold down the little sync button on the Joy-Con and boom, you're connected. So this is true, you can. The Switch 2 has Miis. I was genuinely surprised that the Switch 2 was gonna get rid of Miis, okay? I said it, I love the Miis. Could you imagine? I would have fainted. And with the Switch 1 already hiding these little Mii fellas deep in the settings, I was a little scared that they were just gonna get rid of them altogether with the Switch 2. So I went digging through the Switch 2 settings, and my theory was, since you have to register Amiibo again, and since Miitopia and eventually the epic game Tomodachi Life are going to be playable, maybe Miis might finally be more accessible, like on the home screen or something. Thankfully, Miis are still here, they're just still in the settings. We are getting closer and closer to Miis becoming a main staple again on the Switch 2. To answer the question, yes, the Switch 2 does have Miis, so this is true. The Switch 2 screen isn't as reflective. One problem I had with the Nintendo Switch OLED model was that if I was outside or playing in a room with a ton of light, I just couldn't see the screen that well. And that's not just because of the brightness, it was also how reflective the screen itself was. But when I tested the Switch 2, I noticed that the light reflection wasn't nearly as bad as it was on the OLED. But it could be one of two things. Either there's a new anti-reflective coating on the screen, which is possible, or it's because the screen supports HDR, which makes it look a lot brighter, and that brightness kind of cancels out a lot of those reflections. So just because of that, I'm gonna say it's true. The screen isn't as reflective. The release button is satisfying. For those who haven't had the joy of touching these release buttons on the Switch 2, let me tell you what it felt like. The opposite of this. It felt really good. I got lamp everywhere. My bad. I hate when that happens. Also, speaking of lamp, do you like my new Mario Kart set? I think I'm in love. Clicking this release button reminded me of the first time I slid a Joy-Con into the Switch rail. It just felt right. I don't know how to explain it. So true, the release button hits. Is Sega sponsoring this video? Yeah. They are. That's not even a rumor, that's just true. This video is sponsored by Sega and RGG Studio. And if you're picking up a Nintendo Switch 2, you need to check out this must-have title, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, releasing on July 5th right alongside the console. It's a super fun action-adventure fighting game, and this version is absolutely wild. This is the classic Yakuza 0, but now the definitive version. The Switch 2 edition comes with over 25 minutes of new cutscenes, a brand new online co-op mode, and for the first time, English voiceover support. So now I'll be able to understand it with my ears. The game is set in 1988 Japan. It's a wild crime drama where you brawl your way through everything, using 3 unique fighting styles per character. And you literally use the environment around you as a weapon, like I just did with this lamp. This is somehow still a lamp. Like seriously, look at this weapon he's using. What even is this? And of course, in this game, there's also a ton of side content. You can go to an arcade, sing karaoke, and look, you can even bowl. What is happening? It also looks and runs amazing on the Switch 2. The game runs at 60 frames per second, and you can get it up to 4K docked. It looks incredible on the new display and takes full advantage of the upgraded hardware. Yakuza 0 Director's Cut is one of the best third-party launch titles coming to the Nintendo Switch 2, and the perfect starting point if you're new to the series. It's now available for pre-order, and it comes out on June 5th. I'm actually really excited for this game, so check it out, first link in the description. Alright, now back to the video. You can change mouse mode sensitivity. When I was playing Metroid Prime 4, I thought the sensitivity in the mouse mode was a little low. Thankfully, I was able to hop into the settings and absolutely crank the sensitivity myself. But it got me wondering, can you actually change it on the console itself? Or is it just on a game-to-game basis? Turns out if you go to the Nintendo Switch 2 system settings, there's a sensitivity option for mouse mode. You can pick between low, medium, and high. I'm assuming the in-game settings might override this depending on the title, but yeah, you can definitely change the sensitivity right from the home menu. So, true. GL and GR buttons can be mapped depending on the game. If you weren't aware, Nintendo gave us some beautiful little bonus buttons called the GL and GR. These are the new back buttons on the Switch 2 Pro controller and the JoyCon charging grip. These buttons can be mapped to any combination. Personally, I mapped the back buttons to the L3 and R3 buttons, which are like the analog stick buttons, just so that I don't have to click the sticks. But that's just me. But here's the cool part. If you go to the quick settings menu on the Switch 2, you can remap the GL and GR buttons any way you'd like. And Nintendo has confirmed that you can even map them differently depending on the game you're playing. So this is true. You can. Let's go. The sounds on the home menu are the same as Switch 1. So we already know the Switch 2 home screen has a fun little sound effect when you move around the interface. The Switch 1 had this too, but here's the question. Do the buttons sound the same? Let's find out. Surprisingly, no. Most of the UI sounds are different, aside from the new game share and virtual keycard options. It's kind of odd since the layout is similar, but honestly, I kind of like the change. It feels fresh. I like it. So false. The sounds are new. If the eShop goes down, physical games won't work. Okay, this is a big one. So let's clear this up because there's a lot of misinformation about this. First of all, game keycards. I am one. Join the Vandy Club and send me a picture on Discord when you get it. Available now for a limited amount of time, so go, go, go! But seriously, game keycards are basically licenses. The cartridge tells your Switch, hey, this game is here, and then it downloads the full game onto the system. Some people think that if the eShop goes down, your physical game keycards won't work anymore because the data isn't on the cartridge. They specifically point out what happened to the Wii U and 3DS as examples, because those eShops went down, and then you can't go and buy games for those platforms. But that's actually not how it works. Even today, if I turn on my Wii U or 3DS, I can still re-download games I paid for when the services were live. Sure, I can't buy anything new, but if I already own the game, I can still grab it from my account. And even physical discs, those still trigger patches and updates when you insert them. Heck, if you bought a game back on the original Wii, you can still re-download it years later. So unless Nintendo completely shuts down everything, you're still able to play your physical games and download the required data. So theoretically, if the eShops do eventually go down, we hope that they do something like the Wii, Wii U, and 3DS eShops, where if you own this license, you can at least still re-download it if the eShop does go down. So we just have to hope that those servers never go down, I guess. Game keycards do have their flaws, and I'd much rather have an entire game just be on the cartridge in the first place. But the rumor that you won't be able to play physical games at all if the eShop does go down is just wrong, at least from what Nintendo has been doing. I don't mean to be a Nintendo shill, I really don't. I'm still gonna buy these game keycards. I'd rather still have a cartridge and an option to sell the games anyways. They will still work if the eShop goes down, if they do the same thing that they did with the Wii U and the 3DS. Mouse mode is better than analog sticks. At the current time of recording this, I actually do prefer mouse mode. It gives you way better precision. I play Fortnite and I'm not ashamed. But I don't want to say that this is straight up better, because it obviously depends on the type of game you're playing. For example, mouse mode would be better for shooters like Fortnite or Call of Duty, but analog sticks are way better in platformers like Donkey Kong Bonanza or Super Mario Odyssey. So it really just depends, but right now, because it's new and fresh, I like the mouse mode. True. Gyro is better. We already know that the Switch 2 supports it, but is it really that much better than the Switch 1, because I've heard other people who went to the hands-on experience say that it was night and day better. Personally, I didn't feel a huge difference, but to be fair, I don't really use gyro that much unless I'm playing like Splatoon, and I already know the Switch 1's gyro was fantastic. Still, they're using newer tech now, and if that many people are saying they noticed a big improvement, then I'll believe it. I'm taking their word. So yes, true, the gyro is better. And while I've talked a lot about the Switch 2's hardware, let's crack into some of these games. Welcome Tour is worth it. Okay, so this is a tech demo. I know. Let's break this down for a second. It shows off basic features of the Switch 2, teaches you how the hardware works, and it only costs 10 bucks. Not horrible, right? Well, even though I love the Nintendo Switch 2 so far, I would eat spaghetti off of it. I'm telling you now, this is not worth it. False. Whoever thinks this is worth it is wrong. I'm gonna buy it though. You forced me. There's mouse mode in Fortnite. Ah yes, the age-old question. I've already talked about how it makes perfect sense for Fortnite to support mouse mode on the Switch 2, but it was never actually confirmed until maybe now. This prominent leaker, who constantly dives into Fortnite's game files, found a new setting called hybrid gamepad plus mouse controls, and the Switch 2 is literally that, a hybrid of a controller and a mouse. And the fact that this showed up just weeks before the Switch 2's launch, yes, this is happening. I'm calling it. And honestly, if there's any launch game that makes sense for mouse mode, it's Fortnite. So this is true. Okay, so now here's one of the craziest rumors. Mario Kart World is boring. Why do people think this? Well, look at these tracks. They look like highways. And I get it. Mario Kart has always been known for its crazy, twisty, chaotic tracks. But with Mario Kart World supporting 24 players at once, they had to make the tracks wider, and yes, some of them are a lot more straightforward, less twisty, more highway-y. I actually totally understand the concern here. In fact, I was very concerned for this as well. But from my own time playing it, I was having an absolute blast. Like, I was giggling the entire time. It felt fresh, it felt fast, it was so much fun. And Nintendo actually addressed this concern too. In a developer interview, they explained that the more linear track design was intentional. They added mechanics like rail grinding, boost jumps, and wall driving to make up for the lack of sharp turns, and to just keep things fun and engaging. But in my opinion, no. Mario Kart World is not boring. This is false. But hey, I gotta spend a little more time with it. My full review is coming soon. And hey, YouTube thinks you're gonna wanna watch this video, and you should definitely consider liking and subscribing. That would be cool. And hey, join the list of members here. They have exclusive content and a bunch of cool things. Don't you want your name here? I'll see you in the next one. See you later.